Welcome back to Bearing It All Television. I'm Cindy Willick, and today I'm with Carrie Gallant, the negotiation coach. And today we're going to be talking about how to earn your worth. Now, I think this is going to be an extremely worthwhile interview because I always want to know how to earn my worth. And I'm sure a lot of our viewers will as well. So Carrie, tell us a little bit more about you as the negotiation coach. What exactly do you do?
Well, I work with my clients to help them strategize, to prepare, to really get crystal clear on their outcome objectives in negotiation, and then kind of walk through what are some of the steps that they want to take when they're actually in the negotiation. And often we'll rehearse that ahead of time.
Yeah, that's because that's something we usually don't do.
Yes, exactly.
I can't think of one time actually rehearsing a negotiation. I would think about things that I would want, and then kind of be hopeful that I'd be able to have the courage or actually do that on the day.
Right. Well, it's interesting you say that idea of being hopeful. We hope we're going to get what we want, but if we haven't really practiced it, we don't really know how to deal with some of those things that might come up that we haven't thought of.
So true. So true. So you find, well, first of all, who are your clients? It might be nice just for people to know who they are.
Well, I work with a lot of professionals and people who are on their way up the executive track, so leaders and some entrepreneurs as well. I work with some solopreneurs, some entrepreneurs, because it's always, negotiation is always a part of doing business as well, as you know.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
I know that well. Okay, so those are your clients. And when you work with them in negotiation, are they skills that you can learn just on a day-to-day basis, or is it primarily that there's a certain situation that they're like, I know I'm going to go into negotiation. So are the tools that you offer good for both circumstances?
Well, yes, actually, thank you for asking. They are good for both scenarios, and in fact, I always suggest when I'm doing any kind of training or working with individuals is suggest that what they learn in terms of a skill set for negotiation, that they think about how they can incorporate that into their everyday lives. When we're trying to create new habits, of course, we all know this, that it takes time to develop a new habit. It's the same with a skill, and so these skills are things that you can use every day.
Right.
And in our conversations, any of our negotiation is, after all, a form of communication.
And that's something we don't think about, do we? I don't know if any of you have ever thought about that, but negotiation to me is suddenly like, okay, now we must negotiate. Need to put on a negotiation face, need to kind of put my shoulders back and let's do it, instead of, wow, especially as women, we tend to be natural communicators, right? Not necessarily always efficient communicators, but I think as a woman, if we take on the headspace of being that negotiation is communication, that already shifts it.
That's right. And then my clients do find that. They tell me that quite a lot, that this is really kind of a different frame of mind that helps to set them up for success. Women are also great and fairly natural, if one can say that, at building relationships, and that is another key part of negotiation. So there's lots of these things that we can incorporate into our day-to-day lives, and there still is that piece, though, that when we are going into a more formal scenario around negotiation, that we might want to pull our shoulders back.
Right.
We might want to treat it with greater gravity, and it's knowing the difference with those types of situations and what is going to be the best way in each context. So that's something I work with my clients as well. When they've got a particular negotiation, for example, that's coming up, we talk about, okay, well, what's the context? What are the other people like that you know of? What can you expect? So we work through those kinds of things. So it's both, I work with them both on building the skill sets that they can use in all scenarios, as well as on a particular negotiation.
Oh, that's brilliant. I mean, every one of us would need your expertise. I really believe that's just something that we just kind of, like I said, we try to wing it.
Yeah.
Wing it. So, first of all, we're talking about earning your worth. First, do you find that, I think this is a question that most of us can answer ourselves, but I'd like to ask you this. How many of us really do earn our worth?
Well, that's a very good question, and I think it's something that only each of us can really truly answer. Of course, there are statistics, some research, some market research that we can look to help us decide, are we earning what our true worth is?
Right.
And I say that for a couple of reasons. One is that when I talk about earn your worth, it really is about, well, what is the value? What is your worth? And that can come in three different ways. One is intrinsic. So what are those values to me? How do I value? How do I value myself intrinsically? What are the things that I do? What's it worth to me? And then there's the extrinsic value to the other person. So when we're in negotiation, we're almost always, unless we're trying to decide whether we're going to negotiate with ourselves over a donut or go to the gym later, we all do that kind of negotiation inside. other than that type of scenario, we're always negotiating with someone else. And so what's our value to them?
Right.
Right? And then there's also the wider market. There's the wider extrinsic value to the world, if you like. So there's three ways we can look at value or worth when we're in negotiation.
Because often we just think of dollar signs. The
exactly.
ching, 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 ching. So, that's interesting. Okay, so if we look at it as a form of communication and a form of relationship building, earning your worth, what are, say, the top 3 tips that you can offer that either we don't do well or things that we need to look at to become stronger in those negotiation abilities?
Sure. Well, thank you for asking that question, because that's a great one. So I would say that the top 3 are, first is getting really crystal clear on what it is you want going into negotiation.
Do people not do that?
Oh, often. Often it's a case that we think we know what we want, but we haven't really explored that. So it's getting to our motivation. What is it that we want and why we want it? So how important is it, right? The second piece is then looking at, well, what is my value? So doing those 3 things, the intrinsic to myself, the extrinsic to the other party, and then the third extrinsic in terms of the wider market. Certainly when we're doing the earn your worth, we're pretty much talking about negotiating our salary, or if we're self-employed or an entrepreneur, we're looking at price negotiations. So the same kind of thing. Intrinsic to us, how is it important to us? How is it important to the other side? And then what does the wider market tell us about how we're valued out there? Because when we're talking about negotiating, we're always talking about an exchange of value. So what might be what I'm offering in negotiation to the other party may have no value for them. And it's important that we know that too, right?
Can you give an example of in everyday life where that might happen?
Sure. Let's think about shopping. How many of us like to shop? I bet you do.
No.
Come on, Cindy, be honest now. This is Bearing It All TV after all.
It is. Let me bear it all. Yes, these are new earrings, but they were gifted to me from someone. No, of course, absolutely.
So let's use that as an example. So let's say, as women, we're going out and we're wanting to buy a new skirt. Now let's say we go to one particular shop and we're looking at the various skirts on display, and we're thinking, oh, I like that one very much. And that one, I don't think so. It's too trendy. It's not really what I want. So already we have identified 2 things that are very important. One, I like that very much, so it has some value to me in terms of it's pleasing. I think it might make me look good. It's going to suit the occasion for which I'd like to wear it, so it has 3 things of value to me. This other skirt over here, however, the value is not so high. It being more trendy, it's not suitable for the situation. Being short, it's perhaps not suitable for my physique. Or for what I care to explore or show of myself. It's also the wrong color. So can you see how that value diminishes for that skirt? So it has no value to me. So it doesn't matter how much it's on sale. It could be 50% off, which might lead me to look at it. However, once I look at it, it doesn't have value to me. I'll look over here. This one may not be on sale. It has more value to me. I have to decide if that's the value of the price is the same as the value it is to me. So that's an example I think everyone can relate to.
Yeah, no, that's so true, because there's also times that you'll just walk away from something. You go, that's not really what I want. It's not really what I need. It's obviously not what I value. And to know that I'm actually willing to walk away. I've done that. Whereas there's times before where I wouldn't have walked away.
That's a very good point. We want to be crystal clear on that, so that we know when it's no longer of value to us what's being offered to us, whether it's a skirt for 70% off or 20% off, or whether it's a job offer that has these certain components. If there's not enough value in that offer, we want to know where that place is that we would be willing to walk away.